So good evening, everyone, and a warm welcome to everyone joining us for this initial session. We hope to have another session maybe in a couple of weeks' time to answer any more questions you may have. But tonight, we hope to provide you with some information and also to encourage you to attend the upcoming RI convention that's happening in Singapore next year, which will be the 112th Rotary International Convention. However, before diving into the highlights of this evening, allow me first to just share quickly some insights from the district with respect to the district's RI convention report. For Singapore, we had set a goal of getting 30 persons to attend the RI convention in Singapore. Right now, we are at 31 paid registration. So that's a good sign, which means we've already crossed the threshold or crossed our target. But we have a total of 47 registrations for the RI convention. So which means 16 of you are on the fence. So we're hoping to get the 16 of you to fully commit to attending next year. And I know this number would go up because, believe it or not, I myself have not yet registered for the convention. So I intend to do that very soon. Right? And I also just want to remind you all to register for the convention if you do plan on going on or before December 15th, because the cost of registration is actually going to go up on December 16th. So we would have already missed the absolute wonderful price of $450, which they had happening during the convention in Australia. And right now they have this early bird special that's running until December 15th, where the registration is now $500. However, from December 16th, the registration is going to go up to $595. So I just want to encourage you all, if you do intend to go, to register early so that you could save on the fees for attending the convention. All right. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to introduce our guests. And while our esteemed guest hardly needs any introduction, all right, for those of you who may be new to Rotary and attending this meeting this evening, allow me to offer a brief overview. PDG Roger Bose is a proud member of the Rotary Club of San Fernando in Trinidad and Tobago, and he's been a Rotarian since 1993. Okay, through his Rotary career, Roger has assumed diverse roles, including treasurer, secretary, and committee chairman on a number of committees throughout the district and even in his club. Most notably, he has served as the district governor during the Rotary year 2016-2017, and as club president from 2011 to 2013, and he is also the current club president for the Rotary Club of San Fernando. With 7 Paul Harris Fellow recognitions to his credit, PDG Bose is also a certified discussion leader for the Rotary Leadership Institute of Zone 34. Beyond his commitments to Rotary, PDG Bose holds the position of CEO at telecommunications company Caribel and has a deep passion for golf, having held the role of vice president of the Trinidad and Tobago Golf Association. So without further ado, I pass over to PDG Roger Bose.
Thank you very much, Raj. One comment on your information that you were using to introduce me. It's a bit aged.
Aged? Sorry, what?
Yeah, that needs some updating for sure. But welcome everybody tonight. Raj, thanks for the introduction. I'll just start very quickly, or rather I want to say very quickly that before you may have any questions for me, I think I want to share an abbreviated version of my why have I gone to so many conventions and why do I feel like I still want to. And that same year, 2010, 2011, which was the last time I was president of my club, in a conversation with a random person, to be frank, I don't even remember who it was, they talk about the fact that the Rotary International Convention the next year, 2011, was going to be in New Orleans. And I thought that knowing that the convention moves around the world to different places and thinking about the accessibility of it being in the US and the relative ease of us being able to travel to that location, I started the discussion in my club about some of us going to the convention because it was, quote unquote, relatively close to us. And fortunately, through my wonderful way of encouraging people, I suppose, we eventually got a really nice group of people from my club to go to New Orleans. In fact, we got 9 people from my club to go on that trip. We had a wonderful time. I mean, obviously, the fellowship part of it played a big role, but we also took the advice that I had shared with everybody about maximizing the experience and making sure that we weren't at convention just to get a badge and then leave and never see the inside of the convention hall or never go to anything interesting, or more importantly, to not meet interesting people. And even though it was my first convention as well, and I'd been in Rotary for a little while, I soon came to realize that that was probably the crux of what visiting the convention was about. Not so much the speakers, although that's a big deal. Not so much seeing the RI president and all the dignitaries of RI close up. But that's also a big deal. Not just going to interesting breakout sessions, but that was also a big deal. And not just going to the House of Friendship and seeing a lot of booths, but that was also a big deal as well. So all those things collectively are part and parcel of the convention experience. But for me, what shone from the very first day was just meeting people from every corner of the globe and arbitrarily getting into a conversation with somebody about something in your club, something about your badge, something about the country that you came from, that stimulated discussions that for me up to this day are probably, or is probably, the major reason why I feel so inclined to go back to conventions. Some people are shy, some people are not so comfortable with meeting absolute strangers and getting into a conversation. But when the conversation and when the whole atmosphere is about Rotary speak, so to speak, everything that we're talking about is Rotary related. I find it very easy to get into a conversation with anybody about projects, about sources of information, about resources. And it inspired me to the point of saying throughout my Rotary experience after that, and especially when I was governor, and I suppose since I was governor, that I feel very strongly about the fact that the organization that we have and the people who belong to it throughout the world, we don't know everybody, but is such a powerful organization that I actually feel like we are underutilized, or that we are undervalued in terms of the contributions that we could make, because we do in fact have probably one of the most awesome networks of people in the world. I'm really convinced about that. So it led me to be keen to go to the year after, which is in Bangkok. This is quite a funny story because I just happened to find this. I don't know if you can see it properly. I happened to find this only this afternoon. I wasn't necessarily looking for it, but I found it. My badge from Bangkok. So I'm a little bit nostalgic. I keep all my badges as well. And Bangkok became such a fantastic experience as well, where we also got a fairly large crowd of people to go that year as well. And then we did fantastic things like flying on to Kuala Lumpur and to Cambodia and to Bali, etc. thereafter. So, the trip was excellent from that perspective as well. Anyway, so I think in a nutshell, I've explained why it is that I feel so, I feel that urge to continue to go and to meet people and to have these discussions and to learn more. I genuinely feel, because this was the time when, this is what this badge made me laugh about, that in 2017, I was apparently the incoming assistant governor. I couldn't even remember not 2017, sorry, 2011, 2012, I was the incoming assistant governor, I think, or 11. Anyway, and why I'm bringing that up is because, it was at a stage in my Rotary career, I guess, where, I felt that having those conversations with external people, having conversations with people from other countries with different experiences, perhaps at the same level, perhaps at a different level, was just very interesting and thought-provoking to me. And I really feel, actually, now I will say this, that going to all those conventions and having all those conversations that I've had and continue to have was probably a boost to the path of me becoming governor at some point. I think it really helped me to open my eyes and appreciate Rotary in a much bigger and more powerful way than I did before. And I think that probably inspired the kind of conversations I could have had with various people. It inspired my want to learn more without being asked or without being prodded. And I think that's probably a hugely important thing for any Rotarian to become more deeply involved, is to have that drive come from within yourself, to want to learn more and why did this happen? Why did this happen at that point in time? How can I make things different? How can I take my learnings from elsewhere and bring them home, especially the good ones that will make us better? And I guess just generally speaking, I believe in progress. I don't believe, I strongly believe that next year I'm supposed to be in a better position mentally, knowledge-wise, drive-wise than now. And I think now I am more so than I was last year, and so on and so on. So that I think is important on our Rotary path as well. So, Rog, you need to shut me up now because I might go on a little too much longer. People might want to ask questions. So that was my opening statement, if that's okay.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine, PDG. Really appreciate that. And yeah, if anybody is, feel free to, ask a question of the PDG. Feel free to interrupt at any time to ask a question of the PDG. But so in the meantime, while we wait for those questions, PDG. So thanks for that introduction. I guess my question to you would be, what are you most eager to experience at, let's say, the upcoming convention in Singapore? I think.
Sorry. Yeah, exactly. Some of those wonderful things that I just described, Rog. The people that I'm yet to meet at the Singapore convention is exciting for me even from now. The people that I've met before that I hope to run into, or that we have some other form of communication group arranged where we know that we will all be there again at that convention so we could meet up again. I have probably 3 or 4 groups of people that groups of people, but small numbers of people in the group, who would reach out to me at some point or the other, usually a month or 2 before convention, to make sure that I'm coming, to make sure at some point in time, usually it's a House of Friendship meetup. We would meet up at somebody's booth, or somebody would indicate a very interesting booth at the House of Friendship that none of us knew before, and we would arrange to meet there. And interestingly, the conversation would probably be about what was this booth so interesting about, and why should we get there? And maybe it's an idea or ideas that they just wanted to throw out at people like me who have seen and met and spoken with them over the years and bounced ideas off as well. And it's just an engaging session of, again, I'll use the term Rotary speak. We just talk Rotary stuff.
Okay. Awesome. All right. So then, okay. So what would you say then? I mean, I know you gave some stories earlier on as well in the introduction, right? And it sounds like you have a lot of stories over the past 11 conventions that you've attended. What can you share with us your most memorable experience from any of those past conventions?
I have a lot, actually. I'll
Most
start.
memorable one.
One.
That's the most memorable one. The most memorable one.
Where was that? Yeah, okay. I'm looking up my list to remind me. It was 2014 Sydney, Australia. And they had the most interesting guest speakers that I think I've ever heard at an international convention before. One of them happened to be an 11-year-old child who spoke brilliantly. The other was, unfortunately, I forget his name. I probably have his name in my notes. but he gave a speech that stirred me to the point of tears. And it wasn't because it was it wasn't because it was one of these tear joking stories about somebody sick or dying or anything like that. It was, I think he brought me to tears with the how pointed his speech was about the topic, about us learning, kind of along the line of what I just mentioned about when does a Rotarian get to the point of not needing to be prodded or told what to do anymore. It occurred to me when the way he had put it across that I had passed that threshold, and I guess the realization kind of hit me while he was speaking that it's good to know that I'm at that point in time, at that point rather in my life where I felt like, acquiring knowledge about Rotary and wanting to know more about what we do and feeling empowered about the organization that we're in to do so much good in the world. It became an emotional kind of experience for me personally because it felt like he hit the nail on the head kind of thing.
Yeah. I hear you clearly with that, because similarly in Australia, they had some impactful speakers as well. And it so happened one of them was a teenage girl who spoke about the environment and the work she is doing in Africa. She actually wrote a book on preserving the environment and so forth. And then there was a similar gentleman from Africa who also shared a story, which again, brought some of the people to tears because it was really, it really demonstrated, as you said, the power of Rotary because of the interventions Rotary had in his life. He was able to take that, and despite everything that was happening with him at the time where, he lost his mom, he lost his dad to war, he lost his siblings to HIV and stuff like that. He was still able to persevere with the assistance of Rotary, so much so now that he is like a champion in Rotary with some of the projects that he's doing. So, I understand that clearly, having experienced that in Australia this year. They really have some powerful speakers, and hopefully in Singapore, they would have similarly powerful speakers. All right. Now, we know at the convention, you have a number of plenary sessions and breakout sessions and so forth, right? And it sounds like, you unlike me attend more sessions, right? Or most of these sessions. So what I wanted to ask is like, what sort of strategies do you use to figure out which breakout sessions to attend and so forth?
Okay, good point. Because I was just about to interject a minute ago and say that one of the things we need to drive home to folks thinking of going as well is, you're going to a different country, yes, potentially it's somewhere you've never been before, and you're excited about the touristy things and the going to see the sites and so on, yes. But you can do that and you can be attentive to all the good stuff that the convention has to offer at the same time, and I think I am living proof of that as well. So to answer your question, Raj, you definitely have to have set attending all the general sessions. That to me is an absolute must. You should not miss any general session. The general sessions not only provide Rotary updates, hearing from our Rotary president, other leaders, incoming president, that sort of thing. In terms of messaging and information, I think that's where you have to be. Where the very interesting guest speakers that they get coming from all over the world. I don't know if you know, we had Bill Gates once, and I'm trying to remember if that was the same New Orleans. Can't remember if that was New Orleans or a different one. David seems to, not New Orleans, David. David Edwards, you remember which one?
Maybe muted. Yes.
David, you muted. Oh, Atlanta. Okay, cool. Right. Thank you for reminding me. Okay. Yeah, Atlanta, we had Bill Gates. I mean, we had a host of big, very powerful people come and speak at conventions that, in my opinion, you can't get that probably anywhere else. So you don't want to miss that. With respect to how you plan your time after that, however, so again, a little bit of homework that's done beforehand. You obviously have access to the program before that. And you look at the breakout sessions that come after the general sessions and choose based on Oh, I've seen a message saying host not
Yeah,
allowing
it's
people
not
to
going to
unmute.
unmute. All
Yeah,
right, no problem. Thanks for that. Let me see if I could just get that sorted.
sure.
No, but you could go ahead in the meantime, PDG.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. So I was going to say that a little bit of research and time spent perusing the program to know what the various breakout sessions are after the general sessions, and it's a matter of making a choice with respect to the ones that interest you the most, or the ones that might be speaking to issues in your club or challenges in your club. Especially, I feel strongly about the fact that when you go to convention, yes, you're going to learn about things for yourself, but you're also going to learn things that you want to bring back to your club and your country to be able to share with people who haven't been there, and to take, to use the learnings that you have been fortunate enough to acquire going to convention to help as many other Rotarians and Rotary clubs as possible. So I sometimes dive into things that are not necessarily what would be the top of my list in terms of a personal interest, but I do that for that reason I just described, which
Mhm,
is new information that you could share with other people. I could think being a PDG also mean, and the kind of communication that people continue to have with me up to this day. Many a time it's to share problems, or seek a solution or seek advice. And I think that one of a PDG's responsibility is to remain in the know, number one, and number two, to want to be to be in the know in as wide a range of topics as possible, so that you can be of value to these people who are calling on you. And
mhm,
and in fairness to the DG of the day, because I was once one, you're extremely bogged down. You can't necessarily take direct communication from too many people. You certainly can't deal with 2,200 emails directly from Rotarians. And that is why you have a protocol of communication, and that is why you have other people on your team, etc. But as a PDG, I honestly feel that role now becomes exactly that person I just described that the DG is not able to do. Be open and speak to anybody and be able to offer advice, and therefore keep yourself in the know and keep yourself learning as many new things as possible, so that you could continue to be a valuable resource to anybody, to everybody.
mhm. Excellent. Okay, so I agree with you. Yes, it is important to attend the plenary sessions and the breakout sessions. I know in my first RI convention in Toronto, I did the opposite. I attended the plenary sessions, but I didn't attend any of the breakout sessions. However, that strategy was changed um, in Australia because for all the benefits you sort of mentioned, right? But what I wanted to find out from you, PDG, are there any other networking events during the convention that you find valuable? Because I know outside of the plenary sessions and the breakout sessions, they may have other ticketed events that you may see when you're actually registering for the convention. Any of those that you think are valuable that people should, maybe try to attend when they go to conventions?
Well, yes. And other than PDG forums, which of course are for PDGs, there are other forums of all different genres. I mean, Roger, when you go to the House of Friendship and you see, which is again something I am really strongly suggesting that everybody does as well, because it's not just about the commercial part of it, things for sale and let me buy a new Rotary shoot and that sort of thing. It's about going down to the booths that talk about various projects that for me become instant ideas. For example, it's like my Rotary showcase in my face, so to speak. It's Rotary ideas that are literally being bandied about in front of you. And again, stopping and having these arbitrary conversations with people at these booths, gives you a world of ideas that you could take back for yourself. Some of them you might have to amend because they, to suit your own country or your own club. Many of them, to be frank with you, I still have in my mind to try to come across or to try to introduce, and it just hasn't come about yet because I don't know. I suppose I'm one of those busier people um, in terms of my spreading myself to as many people as possible who reach out to me. But the good thing though about the House of Friendship and those other special sessions is that again, you meet like-minded people where starting a conversation is the easiest thing on the planet. You go into, I don't know how many major donors might be on the call, but you go into like a major donor forum, for example. And I used to shy away from that in the past. I used to think, people go into the major donor forum to pat each other on the back and say, good for you, you're a major donor. And I pat you on your back and I say, good for you too. I used to think that it was like that. And it's actually quite the opposite. It's not about back patting. It's not about kissing anybody's toe. It's much more about the fact that I think that the appreciation of people who had the ability, first of all, obviously, and then the passion and the want to become a major donor and to continue giving, I imagine, are people who really have a good grasp of the foundation, the power of the foundation, and what our donations to the foundation do. And again, that becomes now a whole different type of conversation. It's not about Rotary projects per se, but it's about things on a much higher level with respect to foundation giving, how it affects grants, just the power of the foundation globally, I think, is appreciated by that stature of giver a little bit different than others, and so the conversation is different. But there are so many other groups, if you don't belong to the major donor group, for example, that do have sessions that you should try your best, in my opinion, to try to attend. Again, they become forums of discussion, and sometimes of that become, just like in your Rotary experience. Otherwise, sometimes these people and the conversations you have with them are so interesting that you want to continue even after the convention, and you make a friend. You make a friend and you have somebody to go and visit the next time you're in their neck of the woods or whatever. But it's not just about the making the friend part, but it's about the meeting the like-minded person, whether it comes to projects or the foundation or grants or fundraising. All the various aspects of what we experience in Rotary, in my opinion, is enhanced when you go to an international convention, much more so than even the district conference, which I'm not knocking in any way, but I'm saying it's like a district conference on steroids. I could use that too, right? Because it's not just the people from your district who you're going to meet. You're meeting people from all over the world, and those kind of conversations where the little shoo-shoos in the corner that we all have at district conference about various things. Sometimes it's a problem, sometimes it's a big deal, sometimes it's news to share, sometimes it's something great that happened. That kind of thing happens on a continuous basis and maybe in an amplified way, in my opinion, at international convention.
I gotcha. And I mean, thanks for, because that was one of the questions I actually had for you. How would you distinguish between RA convention and district conference? So
I hope I don't sound cocky by saying this, right? But I plan not to miss a district conference or another convention for the rest of my life. Full stop.
Oh, that is not cocky. That is very inspiring, man. Looking forward to it. Just to read out a couple things from the chat. So I saw Heather Tal mentioning that if meeting other Rotarians is your goal, volunteering as a sergeant of arms is a fun activity. That is correct, Heather. I do agree with you. Well, I've never done it. I don't know if anybody in the meeting has ever done it. PDJ, I don't know if you've ever volunteered as, or you volunteered as a sergeant.
Yes.
And what other opportunities for volunteering did you use at conventions?
Oh, to be honest, the only thing I've ever volunteered to be was a sergeant. I've never. They tend to use volunteers locally for things like ushers and that sort of thing for obvious reasons. They have local knowledge, but so I've only done volunteering wise. I've only been a sergeant.
Right.
And the thing about that, I don't want to sound negative in any way, especially with David Edwards on the call. But when you volunteer to be sergeant, you're really giving up a good bit of your time because you have to be on station. You have to carry out the responsibility. And so, in the truth and in fact, it could take away from some time that you could be using to do some of the networking I spoke about. It could take away from time of running away in the afternoon after your last breakout session to go and see what downtown looks like, or meet up with
Right.
your other friends or whatever it is. And that's
Mhm.
important, don't get me wrong. I mean, I wanted to finish the previous comment I was making about researching the kind of topics and the kind of breakouts that you want to go to. And the whole purpose of that really was A, to do just that, attend the ones that you find interesting, attend the ones that you feel you could bring information back to your club and share with other people on. But the other reason was that so you could understand your time and your timing, so that if your last session ended at 3 o'clock, you and your posse, or you and your whomever, your international posse or your local posse, or the case may be, could make your plan from that point onwards. So you still get to line, you still
Right.
get to restaurants, you still get to sightsee, but you
Mhm.
do it at a time when it's convenient based on having fulfilled your convention responsibility first, as far as I'm concerned.
Understood. All right. Another question here. It's in French. So thank you, Melissa, for because I have been studying French at the Alliance Française, so I could read it, but I can't respond to you in French. But the short answer is oui or yes. There would be translation and interpretation services at the convention. As a matter of fact, when you go into the different booths, you could actually select the language in which you want to hear your native language for these sessions. All right. So PDG, another question I wanted to ask, you mentioned, you spoke a lot about networking and so forth. Do you actively maintain contact with some of these folks? Like, have you gone on to do projects with them, or do you just connect with them when you're in their cities? Like, what's the connection like post-convention?
Yeah, well, first part of the question, yes, definitely. I have quite a few people who I keep in contact with. Not all of them, obviously, are from countries that you would frequent. The ones in the States, for example, where I would more frequent for business and otherwise, there are quite a few in Florida that I keep very close tabs with, who are also part of our zone. If I were to go back, and I'm seriously considering going back to do a NID in India, before that kind of becomes, when that eventually stops. I know that's a few years away, but I'm just saying that I might take that opportunity to do that again. And there are some people who I met there. Would you believe I'm going to tell you that when I had gone on my first NID, which was in 2019, the bus driver who took the crew all over the place still messages me with jokes.
Okay.
We just became friends because I wanted to be, I'm Roger Bush from Trinidad, so I want to sit in the front of the bus next to the bus driver so that I could pepper him with questions about where we going and
Of course,
stuff
of
like
course.
that. And typical me became the person where everybody understood that the seat next to the driver was mine. And so we became friends and we started to message each other and so on. And yeah, up to now, he still sends me messages, A, asking me when I'll be back, and B, sending me silly jokes or whatever it is. So, I mean, if I'm in that neck of the woods again, clearly he's going to be somebody I'm going to look up. He's not a Rotarian, but I'm just saying, these things happen. And it's great that you're able to, go to Tampa or go to South Carolina, various places that I could think of, Chicago, for example. And be able to look up people and they welcome you with open arms. I mean, it's a real gem of a feeling. I remember saying to people when they now join Rotary and you put the pin on them, you tell them that they could go and visit any club anywhere in the world with their pin and they would be welcomed. And that's a fact as far as I know. But it's a different thing when you actually know somebody or more than one person in said club. It becomes a different experience. And yes, to answer your second part of your question, I have discussed on more than one occasion projects with these people, not to do them jointly, but in terms of project ideas or projects that they may have done that they could tell you what the stumbling blocks are. Yeah. So I think somebody was trying to ask a question. So let's open the floor.
I'm not sure. Fitzroy, I think it was. Fitzroy was trying to ask a question.
He's on the phone.
He's on the phone. Oh, okay. All right. You could go ahead in the meantime, PDG.
No, I mean, I think if I ramble on, people not be inclined
no,
to.
it's not. No, I won't call it rambling at all. I think the information that you provided, has been very, very useful, especially for folks who may be considering attending the first convention. I know some of us use it as an excuse to travel as well, right? So I think one of the questions I had for you was like, do you find time to do like touristy activities while at the convention, or do you do it before? Do you do it after? Do you find time in between? How do you do that?
Okay, so the easy answer to that, in my opinion, is about how you plan your time with respect to the actual trip itself, meaning the 4 days of full convention action. I tend to want to give as much attention to the convention action as possible. As I just mentioned, obviously there's a time in the afternoon when you would have gone to your last session or you had your last conversation with whomever, and you could go out and do your sightseeing and that sort of thing. But I think what is important, especially going that far, I mean, Singapore is 12 hours ahead in time, other side of the world, literally, same time zone as Australia practically. So it's a long trip, and I think that most people probably think the same way, which is that I would either want to add some days before I get to the convention to do some trips otherwise, or to get to know Singapore itself better, or do the same thing after the convention as well. Remember, conventions end on a Wednesday, and nobody want to go home on a Wednesday. Even if you go to Tobago, you don't want to come home on a Wednesday. If you go to Miami, you stay in until the weekend. Nobody comes home on a Wednesday. So it sounds funny, but seriously speaking, I mean, on a trip that length, you would think that you do as much convention stuff as you can. You make as many of these linkages that I spoke about as you can. You don't have to stay there all day. You do things in the evening, yes, of course. You don't miss your general sessions, as I said, in the morning. And then from Wednesday onwards, you pack up a plan, or you plan, I should say, a pack of activities in terms of, seeing Singapore or making short hop flights to many interesting places close by. Some of them I mentioned earlier that we did on our previous trip, for example. Indonesia is right there. The north part of Australia is not that far away either. A bunch of really interesting places. I went to Cambodia for 3 days, and since then I've been wanting to go back. I haven't been yet, but I'm just telling you, boy, extremely interesting, completely different part of the world. The way people do things there is just, you feel like you're on a different planet, honestly speaking, not just the language part, it's just the way how they live their lives. So it's just eye-opening, and you should really take the opportunity after you've taken in as much of Singapore as you can, to include in your budget, making these short hops to other places and just experiencing it.
Yeah. I see Fitzroy raised his hand. Fitzroy, go ahead and ask a question, please.
Fitzroy is on mute.
Fitzroy? Fitzroy, you're muted, huh? If you're
hearing me now?
yes, loud and clear.
Good,
Yes,
good,
sir.
yeah. How does a club register a project on Showcase? The lead time, and what are the benefits?
Yeah, I heard you. If you're asking me the question, the answer is you can access Rotary Showcase. David Edwards, help me here, please. Is it still called Rotary Showcase, or did they change the name?
Yeah, if he sorry to say it this way, if you Google Rotary Showcase, that will help you to get in. Don't search in the Rotary.org. Don't do the search. Search through Google, and that will put you in. Then you will have to sign in though to input. You can read as a visitor, but to input, you have to input as through your own portal or the club, as a secretary or president or whoever, whatever. But that you cannot certainly read. And if I may be so presumptuous to try to answer the second part of the question is, the simple answer is that it's doing what the name says. It's showcasing your projects to the whole world. And if in case you want to invite invite persons to join with you in a grant or something for your projects, that's the place to put it as well.
Okay.
Thank you, PDG, for that answer. Does anyone else have any questions related to convention for PDG Bose? Anything that he did not cover that you wanted to tap into his experience about? Like, for example, PDG, how do you pick your hotels? How do you pick your hotel for the convention? Because I don't know if anybody did some searching on the site, but there are a ton of hotels, some at varying distances, and of course, the closer you get to the
Well,
Marina Bay,
have a
the
really,
expensive it is.
I have a really, really interesting fact to tell you, well, to tell all of you about this. And some of you might gasp when I tell you what I'm about to tell you, and that is, I never book my hotel until weeks before the convention.
For the convention, yeah.
And the reason for that is that all the
Cancellations.
good hotels, if you look now, it'll probably tell you that all the good hotels are gone.
So, yeah,
And
correct.
inevitably, a bunch of people will cancel.
Yeah.
And those rooms will become available. And the really good hotels close to all the action suddenly become available, and you only booked it 3 weeks prior. It's
That's
happened
correct.
to me on several occasions, and it works out like that for me.
No, yeah, that is totally correct. You get a bunch of cancellations leading up to the convention, and some of the hotels tend to open up. But so if you don't mind me asking, like, which hotel are you considering for Singapore?
I haven't even looked at it yet.
Okay, no problem. All right, no problems.
But there's another part to this answer that you might find funny when I tell you. My modus operandi with regard to going to conventions for years now is I will call PDG Leslie Ramdani.
Right.
Say, Les, which hotel you're looking at? And he would say, boy, either this one or that one.
Right.
And eventually, almost all the time, we end up at the same hotel.
At the same hotel. Okay, that is excellent. PDG David, do you have a question?
More comment, but on the point you were just making about hotels, what happens is that after the cutoff dates for the change in pricing and so on, they get a good indication of numbers. And then by probably the end of the year, so December 31st, typically they'll make what they call a dump of excess. And that's where the first set of rooms open up with that dump. And then they'll make another dump very close to the full cutoff time. As they're getting close to that, they dump them because it's costly if they keep them. So
of course, yeah.
they'll do the dumping, and that's why the things come. But my real intervention was just to one of the questions earlier, how do you prepare for all the different sessions and breakouts and so on. And I'm just suggesting that there's an app called it's called the Convention app, My Guides, and it has the full itinerary, the full program for the entire convention, and you can actually select the ones you want and make your own agenda for every day, for times and so on. And if perchance, as PG Roger was saying, if you're a group, then you can also use that and say, well, Roger is going to this one, Leslie's going to this one, David is going to that one, and do your programming that way. So that's a fantastic app to use to see you through the entire convention. It has everything, all the timing and everything, and you can put what you want to go to and have it even to alarm for you and so on. So that's
right. And PDG, a quick question on that app. Does it allow you to see the other participants?
There is a section in it, yes, that you can sort of message and text with others, yes. Because leading up to the convention, a lot of people you'll find in it saying, just like Roger was just saying, what hotel you stayed in? I have this hotel that's only a mile away. The price is such and such. People sort of correspond with one another. It's like I guess I'm lost for the words with this type of thing, but it's like a little text or a WhatsApp group within the app. So there's a lot of back and forth with convention goers, regardless of who they are. You don't even have to know them. They'll tell you, I found this hotel and it's excellent thing and it's a mile away and blah blah blah. And that's how you find out a lot of information.
Yeah, because the reason I was asking, because I know some of these convention apps that I've seen before, used before, it allows you to kind of scope out the attendees so that you could, identify who you definitely want to try to meet up with at these different meetings, you know what I mean? At these different conventions. So, as PDG was talking about networking and so on earlier, if you have a particular project you might be interested in or something, depending on the research you do beforehand, you could actually, try to get a face-to-face with a Rotarian or a club that may have expertise in the project that you want to do, or a club that, is known for giving out grants and or partnering with other clubs, like in the Caribbean, for example, on projects and so forth. So that thanks for mentioning that, PDG. Was that Rotary app is very convention app, sorry, is really powerful once you know how to take full advantage and make full use of it. All right. Anybody else? Does anyone in the
I can
audience
get through with it, so I believe most everybody else could. If I could do it.
No, maybe you'll do a session and you could demonstrate the use to everybody. All right. Does anyone else have any questions? Anyone else in the audience have any questions for the PDG? All right. So to kind of recap some of what and to say thanks to PDG.
Sorry, Roger, there's a question about spouses program. I don't think there's a spouses
question about spouses program.
Good evening, PDG Roger.
As far as I'm aware, from the reading I've done so far, I haven't come across a spouses program.
I don't think so.
The closest thing you may have that you could look at are probably the different tours that the host organizing committee may be arranging, and some of those tours that do happen during the time of the convention itself. So if your spouse, is a little adventurous, or if you go with a group, they could probably consider doing some of those tours that are recommended by the host organizing committee while you're attending the different sessions.
And those events those host organizing committee events are really spectacular.
Yes,
That's home hospitality at its best.
They still can't top the 70-30 fellowship line, but
all right. True.
They still can be there.
That even other people wanted to storm, right, Raj?
Yeah, like you remember? I mean, people wanted to stop our event. A man come with a scooter, try to drive a scooter into the event,
But to the specific thing that Greg Hazard asked, if I may, the spouse program, as he, I don't know, I know Greg, so I know maybe his way of thinking, but my thought on that is that the program in the plenary sessions, as PG Roger said, that's not for Rotary, that's for everybody. There is not a session you go into that I prefer to put it as a non-Rotarian for the purpose of what we are talking about. That would not be engaged in a session. So the session is not for a Rotarian type of thing. Those sessions are powerful to anybody. So I think then if we bring in the spouse part, a spouse who wants something to do that day will enjoy those sessions, and then you have your time after for your sightseeing.
I see PP Ken is saying that their spouses, their tours for spouses. So maybe he can elaborate there.
Yeah, and if you have more information, that would be great. But as I said, I mean, I've never seen tours for spouses per se. I've seen, general activities that, as PDG David was saying, that anybody could participate in. All right. All right. So thanks. Or somebody is clapping, or they have their hands up. I saw Heather, tell you have a comment.
Solly was clapping.
Yes,
she was clapping.
She was clapping.
Thank you, Giselle. So my comment about the hotels is that persons, especially first-time attendees, shouldn't really get too caught up with the convention hotels, if indeed all the hotels are booked. I remember, to my mind, book a hotel that is close to the transport. There's often convention transport, and no, let me back up. Let me give an example. In Lisbon, I booked a non-convention hotel, which was 15 feet, 15 steps. I counted almost every day. 15 steps from the entrance to the subway. More often than not, I got to the convention site, which was outside of Lisbon, before the shuttle buses, you know? And I tried to convince some of my club members, come and take the metro with me. It's nice and clean and fast. So you could look for a hotel that's close to metro. Or I remember in New Orleans, we stayed in the French Quarter, and right around the corner was the shuttle bus at one of the hotels. So we would go and stand up by the hotel because we are going to the same convention. So, you know, don't get too tied up in being worried if all the convention hotels are booked. There are a lot of other hotels that are available. Just make sure that it's close to the subway. I remember in Hamburg, all the travel was free once we had the badge, and that was really good. But you know, you can always rely on the conventional transport, but finding one close to the subway, the metro, or whatever the public transport is also good as well. So don't get too tied up if all the convention hotels are booked.
Right, that is good advice. And one piece of advice I would just add on to that, for those who may be tempted to do Airbnbs in these countries, please be very, very careful, right? I have a story about my partner, Gino from Curacao. He's a club president for Curacao, who he and his group, they booked Airbnbs in Toronto and got it canceled while they were in Toronto. So if you're doing Airbnbs in these countries, you need to be very careful because the hosts tend to try to maximize profit. So if it is you agree to stay, let's say 7 days at their accommodation, if on the day of or the day before they get a request for 10 or 11 days, they are going to kick you out, no questions asked, and send back any monies you paid willingly to accommodate the longer stay. Hotels are safer because the hotel must guarantee whatever it is you book. Airbnb, I know they are trying to clamp down on it, but it still happens where the host will just terminate your booking, and it can happen while you're actually arrive, like while on the flight into the country. You could land and realize you don't have an accommodation to stay at.
Can I comment on that for 1 second?
Sure, no problem at all. I see, look, Gino saying yes, be careful.
Yeah, it's because in the Airbnb contract that you probably didn't read, it says that they are very much allowed to do that whenever they feel like.
Yeah, I know they're very much allowed to do it, but I mean, you know, you tell me you're booking, you accepted my booking. You know, I don't expect to know while I'm in the country to hear my booking get canceled. You know, I'm not talking about like a week before you tell me I get canceled. I'm talking about while in the country you're telling me you get canceled. That is not nice at all. Not nice at all. All right. So if there aren't any more questions for PDG Roger, I just want to tell him thanks a lot for taking time out to have this discussion with us. As he mentioned, you know, you should be encouraged to attend the convention. You'll be able to participate and engage in breakout sessions and discussions. You'll be able to attend some motivating general sessions. And trust me, those general sessions are really excellent. He also mentioned that you'll have the ability to network with other Rotarians from across the globe. You'll be able to make new friends. For those who are returning, of course, you may get to mingle with some old friends you met previously. I mean, funny story was, like, I met Gino in Suriname for the district conference, and while walking on the streets of Montreal, bounce up Gino and his whole clip there again, and then bounce up again in Toronto, and it was really fun. PDG also mentioned that you could browse the exhibits, visit the House of Friendship, and you could still make time to explore the city, even though you fill the days of the actual convention with convention activities. All right. So as we know, the convention is Rotary's largest event for the year, and is a chance for members to show the general public who we as Rotarians are and what we do. You know, so really want to encourage you all to attend the next convention. So PDG Roger, with that, I want to say thanks a lot for taking the time to have this discussion with us. Okay, what you could do is send a WhatsApp to the number that is here on the screen, or an email to the email address that is here on the screen. That's my personal WhatsApp and my personal email. So once you get that, I will add you to the list, and I would keep everybody who has applied in in the different groups updated as to what number we are at, that would allow us to secure the rate. Now, this rate, the good thing about getting this group rate now is that it's going to hold from now until 45 days before the flight. If you need if you need a payment plan for these rates, that's fine. We could work with you on that as well. And as I said, this rate will hold steady from now until the time of departure. Whereas if you wait till next year to book the flight on your own, you'll be paying a different rate. Usually rates go up the closer you get to the actual travel date. So the other thing is, again, for those of us who are going straight to Singapore, this is the host organizing committee website that you can go on now. They have loads of information about what to do in Singapore. So just as PDG Roger mentioned earlier, there are tons of activities you could do in the city, either in the evening after the breakout sessions or on your own time before or after. So if you do take the flight only option that the district is providing, you would arrive on the Thursday. The actual convention starts on the Sunday. That's when the opening ceremony is. So you actually have like Friday, Saturday, and then the following Thursday to do sightseeing and stuff within the Singapore area, if you so want to do. And they also have tours. So PGD Roger mentioned, going off to a different country that is close by. If you're familiar with that part of the world, Singapore is a little city island type state at the bottom of this kind of peninsula. And there you have Vietnam and Cambodia, as PDG was saying. You also have Thailand and Malaysia, all in that surrounding area. You could actually drive across the border from Singapore into Malaysia. It's very easy to do. But all that information is available, again, on the host organizing committee website. And if you're feeling more adventurous, you will see they have like Philippines and so forth, which would require you to jump on a plane and fly further away. But all that information, as I said, is available on the convention website.
Roger, can I say something quickly?
Sure.
I almost forgot something hugely important to mention about the attraction of this part of the world.
Sure.
The food.
Yes.
Oh my God, the food, the experience is out of this world.
Yes, totally agree. And for those of us who were in Australia, who did the pre-convention tour in Australia, we might remember we had a day where we not a day, a full day, but we were at a winery, and they did, I think it was either 8 or 10 course sampling menu, and it was excellent. And what I can tell you is, in these pre-convention tours that we have set up, there are culinary experiences lined up right throughout. So whether it is you want to do the street food experience, there's certain restaurants we're going to visit, again, to get the different food experiences in these countries. And the prices like for some of the lunches and dinners are included in the pre-convention tour. Good question, Tanya. With respect to visa, to attend Singapore, to travel to Singapore, no visa is required. Okay. But to visit Malaysia, Thailand, and Cambodia and Vietnam, they have what you call I think it's visa on arrival. So you have to apply.
I could comment on that too.
Sure.
Those you don't need a hang on.
You don't need to stick any passport. Basically, it's all online.
Now it is. Yeah, it used to be that you bought a sticker at the airport.
That's correct.
But now it's an online application, and it's you're sort of guaranteed to get it. They just want the money.
That's correct. And I mean, we can't knock them, because I think now to travel to the UK very soon, and even the other European countries, we'll have to pay for this, this entry fee, or this application fee to attend to fly to these countries. So we can't get that much. You can get more information on pre-convention tours using this website tomorrow. So tomorrow you'll be able to log on and see the full itinerary. And what we will do is we will set up a session either next week or the week after, where we will dive deeper into the flights that we're offering from Singapore based on the feedback we get in a couple of weeks, as well as the pre and post convention tours. All right. So I don't know if anyone else have any. Oh, and a good point. If you look in the chat, you would see the link. The Rotary Convention website actually has a page dedicated to visa information for Singapore and so on, right? Not so much for the other countries, but more so for Singapore. All right. So yeah, so that brings us to the end of the session this evening. If you do have any questions, feel free to ask now. If not, if no one else has any questions, I just want to say thanks again to PDG Roger for taking the time out to have this conversation with us this evening. All right, so again, thanks everyone for attending. Again, thanks to PDG Roger. Again, thanks everyone for taking time out this evening. Have a great evening, everyone.